All right, what's going on, everyone? Today I have Colby. He works at Axiom Collision Repair down in Colorado. He's the GM of two shops doing over about 4 million in revenue. Colby, you want to give a little introduction about yourself?
Yeah, Colorado native. Been with Axiom since day one. First day of business, January 2nd, 2018. Started as detail and just kind of worked my way up. Now I'm, like Tanner said, overseeing the two facilities in Inglewood and Loveland, and just rocking and rolling every day, trying to get as many cars out as we can.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, before we dive into closing files, can you briefly explain the importance of closing a file and the impact it has on the workflow and the revenue in the business?
Yeah, I mean, how should I say this? I want to capitalize and maximize everything, every penny. I don't want to miss out on. I don't want to leave money on the table if I don't
Yeah,
have to leave money on the table.
absolutely.
So I'm digging into files, kind of at a deeper level, making sure every penny's accounted for, and we're writing ethical estimates, but we're also capitalizing on profits where we can.
Awesome. Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense. At the end of the day, you don't want to leave any change on the table. You want to take it all.
As
Now,
much
if
as I
you want
can.
to, yeah, go ahead and share your screen and then we'll kind of have you walk us through your process on how you close file, making sure you're maximizing on all the money.
Yeah, absolutely. So this file here is, let me get that away. All right. So this file here is at our Inglewood shop. This is for a PDR company that we work with pretty frequently. They bring a lot of cars our way. This one, it's tax exempt, and they've got their own kind of profile set up, being we do so much wholesale work with them. But typically, when I'm closing files, I kind of tend to start on one side of the tabs and work my way over. So forms, that that one usually you can skip over, but if it's a customer file or an insurance file, I'm looking to make sure a DTP was printed to make sure dates were entered correctly. Events log, this just kind of shows me who did what, where things are at, and the latest changes. Notes, obviously looking to make sure our people are entering notes to keep files clear, concise, and basically anything pertinent to the job is where it belongs. So that one looks pretty good. Total loss we can skip over. This one's not going to total. Repair plan, it looks like they completed the paintwork Friday. I'm assuming QC and reassembly should be taking place into Monday, but being a me, I'm just going to change that while I'm in here. So the receipts tab, the grand total on this one's $1,261.61. Parts, there's one part. We ordered one part. There was a purchase order and there's an invoice. So from there, looks like we just bought an OEM hood, super straightforward. Labor, just making sure this number down here, this 16, matches what the RO hours are, and if not, making sure part cleanup time is addressed correctly. So this one's got 10 hours on the total ticket. We have 16 hours assigned, and it looks like there was 6 hours that the vendor paid for part cleanup. So we should be good there. Uh, Biggest thing is right in here under the performance tab. So, right out the gate, I'm looking at this. Couple things I'm not a huge fan of seeing is all of this red.
Why is that?
42.6, that's kind of the CCC target gross profit margin. I'm seeing a 32.1. I mean, it's a smaller ticket, but again, every penny matters. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here into the labor, the exceptions. So basically, the key to understanding the exceptions, the information we're putting into this file is essentially feeding these exceptions. So if these exceptions are there, we have to understand why. So gross profit less than target for body. Well, CCC, you can kind of predefine your gross profit for labor. So if you have it set for, 60%, because we're paying the techs a 40% commission. Uh, but some techs make more than the 40%. You're always going to see a gross profit less than target for body. In this particular instance, looking at this, we have Angel and the paint team and some cleanup with Trent. So all between the paint team and Trent, that's kind of why we're seeing that gross profit less than target for bodies. So nothing super substantial there. Gross profit less than target for OEM. That's the discount we have set in CCC. Being say it's 32, we may have only received a 30% discount on this. So the system's flagging me and letting me know that our discount may have been shorted. Um, so we'll check that one off. Refinish and paint, it's kind of the same as body. The paint team, if the system's calculated to pay the techs 40%, 60% gross profit margins, we paying our painter a higher percentage. So that's why you're seeing that. So it's pretty common. Gross profit less than target for part cleanup. That's the vendor time that the dealer paid. Which I will get into here in a second. And then labor assigned not on repair order. That's essentially going to be that part cleanup. So right out of the gate, my first thing I'm going to look at is the gross profit being less than target for cleanup and the labor assigned not on repair order, just to make sure we have documentation there. Documentation I'm looking for is essentially, so I see why our gross profit's so far off on this file. It looks like one of the gals at Inglewood has paid the technicians 6 hours of part cleanup, but I don't see a partial credit from the vendor. So that is where we'll reach out to the vendor on Monday to take a peek at, and we'll task Bryson, the parts manager down there, accordingly. So that's the biggest issue with this one. We got to get that part cleanup money from the dealer directly. So usually they will write up an estimate for 6 hours cleanup. Once they approve it, they'll send us a credit. That credit will offset, and that's where the shop pay or the part cleanup time will come from for Trent. So, but essentially, now that I've made sense of those two things, I can now understand why our margins are what they are. Let me see if I can move this guy. Yeah, so Trent, those $132 impacts, they both match. So I need to try to get that part clean up from the dealer, and that should clean those two up and in general boost that overall profit
Mm.
analysis margin here.
Okay.
But there's no freight, there's no nothing. It's a pretty clean file otherwise. So that's what we got to hone in on.
And so do you have to get that invoice before you close the file, or you can close the file beforehand?
So I personally would like to get that invoice before closing this file. Now it doesn't always happen that way. You know, with it being middle of November, I could close this file as it sits, make sure Trent's paid. Um, and know that we're working on it. When that credit does come in, I can reopen this file personally and I can correct everything
Mm.
to essentially show that change. And it's not going to run on the export when it's not going to run on into December's export in theory. So the numbers will be the numbers of November. So there won't be any substantial changes.
Okay. And on top of going through all the tabs, do you have any other like tips or tricks to help shops close files a little more efficiently, making sure they are maximizing it besides the ones you gave us today?
You know, I I I literally, if I'm in a pinch and I got 10 minutes to do one before a different situation occurs, I'm going straight to the exceptions. So
Mm.
understanding the exceptions, why they exist, and why CCC is flagging them as exceptions, wrapping your head around why they're there, that's going to help you efficiently monitor and kind of maximize these files.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I appreciate your time today, Colby. Thank you for walking us through this process on how to close files.
Yeah, buddy, you're welcome. Anytime.